Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lily Peterson, and I conducted this research project with the help of my advisors, Dr. Kimberly Morse-Jones and Dr. Timothy Shower. To start this presentation, I would like to discuss one of the most famous logos we see probably every day, the Apple logo. So here's the modern logo we see all the time. It's up there with McDonald's and Adidas and every other instantly iconic graphic design. It's instantly recognizable, but still minimalist. It's representational because we know exactly what it depicts, and this version has a very glossy, metallic look that is kind of similar to our iPhone or computer. So what about the first Apple logo? It shows Isaac Newton finding gravity because an apple's about to fall on his head, and on the sides it shows Newton, a mind forever voyaging through the strange seas of thought. It's very old-fashioned and incredibly complex, especially when compared to the newer design. So now that we're thinking about logo design, let me give a quick synopsis of my project. In my academic career, I have always been interested in the aesthetic appeal of art and how it can be used as a tool for motivation, remembrance, or propaganda. Even though marketing logos only started to become mainstream in the early 20th century, they still follow the same themes of public influence, but representing a brand and reflecting their quality, interests, and values. That being said, studies on logo design and use are still very ongoing and of course subject to change as trends come and go. After I examined previous articles and studies on logo design, as well as a general understanding of cognitive effects in the art world, some particular questions stood out to me. I wanted to investigate if different logo trends corresponded with generational target markets. Do different age groups respond differently when presented with contrasting styles? Or is logo preference, when presented aesthetically, much more arbitrary? This could be very useful information for businesses targeting different age groups or looking to reach younger generations. My hypothesis was that an older age group may be more inclined towards older trends because of a longer previous relationship with those styles. For example, minimalistic designs have surged in the past decade over more complex works. However, I believe that any biases from an older generation would come more from an individual relationship with the brand's previous designs than the general style itself. For this reason, I used two different surveys exploring simplicity versus complexity in logo design, with both brand equity and no brand equity in the mix, among other factors. For my results, I found that age had nearly no correlation with different logo preferences from a purely aesthetic perspective. However, my data shows a possibility for individuals with very personal brand relationships to have preferences for older trends. In this presentation, I will be first addressing cognitive processes related to aesthetics and a history and overlook of logo design, with an additional focus on Sweetbrier's logo evolution. Secondly, my own data and methodology, and lastly, an analysis of my work with possibilities of further research. On to neuroaesthetics. Neuroaesthetics has only been given a very recent focus and study, mostly in the 21st century. Studies show several neural and scientific processes underlie aesthetic appreciation. However, psychological aesthetics is a hard topic to study given the diversity of people, cultures, and contexts. Viewing any kind of art as a dynamic process, where cognitive functions use our memory, mental imagery, and personal focus that relates to different cortical networks. Experiencing dance or listening to music provides a very different experience than viewing a painting or digital designs, but overall still heavily relies on the V1 cortex. Overall, one of the most important factors in neuroaesthetics is art's neurobiological foundations in emotion. When studied in the context of logos, there is neurochemical evidence that suggests a unique human drive to communicate through symbols. There are several recurring themes in the study of logo design. Most of them address simple logos versus complex logos, trends in color schemes, symmetry, and logo recognition. More complex or representational logos have been found to positively influence brand equity and performance. The reasons behind this comes from the concept that descriptive logos are easier to process and therefore elicit stronger first impressions of authenticity in a brand. Another positive aspect with logo complexity are studies that have found exposure to complex logos increase brand recognition. Data suggests that there are short-term recognition benefits for simple logos and long-term benefits for complex logos. On the other hand, simple logos can be easier to initially understand or read, especially when presented small in settings such as online advertisements. In the category of color, color differentiation has been a marketing topic for years and examines color norms between different product categories. For example, many food businesses use warm colors such as red or yellow in their advertisements because of studies suggesting that those colors relate to hunger. Cooler colors such as blue can be associated with travel or retail. Overall, red and blue are two of the most common colors used in marketing design. So what makes a good logo? Well, it needs to be easily recognizable and provoke positive aesthetics effects in the consumers. Many different factors can be recognized, such as balance, asymmetry, complexity, repetition, roundness, sharpness, and color. Many popular brands also have logos that can be adapted to fit particular needs or size, going from complex to simple in several different steps. For well-established brands that many people recognize on a daily basis, even the simplest designs, such as the Walt Disney D, can be recognized in a second. New trends in the past decade have produced largely more simplified versions of older logos. So how do these concepts fit into the Sweetbriar logo? While Sweetbriar has been through many rebranding processes, I focused on the New Athletics logo edition, which was revealed in the last school year, as shown on the left side of this slide. While college athletics branding has its own subcategory in logo design, the overall goals are the same for most logos and include provoking excitement and memorability. Our older design, known as the Crispin Vixen in honor of Coach Crispin, who worked at Sweetbriar for over 30 years, was established in the late 2000s as a simplistic, Fox-inspired sports logo. Our new logo sets, known as the Fierce Vixen logos, are described on the website as a bold use of Sweetbriar's pink and green, complemented by strong strokes and accents of midnight blue, which project the intrinsic connection of the college and athletics. Casey Grogan, our sports information director at Sweetbriar, stated that it was important to have something that not only stood out, but wasn't what I call minor league. To me, this needed to be a mark that can last, and with the different versions we have and the ability to complement the older marks, I think the new Vixens can live for a long time. This change we can fit into the complex versus simplistic category inspired me to ask consumers, and specifically those affiliated with the college, what their preferences were between the two. Taking the relationship with the college into account, alums, students, and faculty weighed in on their preferences. I got many honest responses, with some that took into account their own personal bias and others that seemed strictly aesthetic-based. For everyone that took the survey, 46.6% chose the new design, and 53.4% chose the older design. Their reasonings included familiarity, recognizable aspects, and aesthetic appeal. When divided into age groups in 10-year intervals, I found that almost every age group had a nearly 50% preference, which was only broken up by the 30 to 40 age group. Interestingly enough, this correlates with the emergence of the Crispin Vixen logo when that group would have been students at Sweetbriar, showing a possible correlation and bias towards personal relationships with the logo itself. While the sample size for individuals taking the survey not affiliated or less affiliated with Sweetbriar was a much smaller group, they also showed a 50-50 preference towards the logo, while students and alums leaned slightly toward the old Crispin Vixen. Next, I wanted to take brand equity and relationship out of the survey responses. It was clear that there was plenty of extreme brand relationship and bias in the Sweetbriar responses, and I wanted to make logos for brands that do not exist to take that out of the picture. This slide shows 3 different logos, each with 3 levels of difference. The first one showed simple versus complex, the second exploring warm, cool, or gray tone color schemes, and the last with contrasting degrees of letter placement and readability. The following graphs show the responses and winners of each category. When evaluated from an age point of view, each option had a median age of between 36 and 46, with every category presenting a difference of 5 years or less in response of each question. With the exception of Design 3, which had an average age of 36, pick option 3, and an average age of 46, pick option 1. In conclusion, I found that logo preferences, strictly in terms of age, appears to be a very arbitrary subject. However, there are biases recognized and shown on a small scale for personal attachment to old trends. The topic of simplistic versus complex designs still remains a large concept in choosing logo designs, and a balance has to be achieved between descriptiveness and simplistic aesthetic appeal. My data results did show preferences for more abstract design, warmer color tones, and a word placement grouped together under the main design, similar to the Fierce Vixen logo. An older demographic with an average of 46 having a preference for this option could be largely coincidental, or could possibly find it easier or faster to read since the words grouped together is easier for the eye to manage. In the future, this could be studied further along with information I have not found about logo design, such as possible gender preferences with style or color. Here are my citations. Please feel free to ask any questions.